As a developer, you're supposed to write code. But as you grow in your career, there's a need to read the code and understand it. Not only this, you're supposed to read, understand, and fix the bugs in the code written by other developers. Documentation is really important, but I'm not saying you write lengthy tens of pages of documentation. In fact, there's a simple and more effective way to write the documentation, and this is exactly what I'm going to share in this video. Top 7 ways to document your code. And the first one is self-documenting code. Self-documenting code is all about writing your code in a way that it explains itself. This means using clear descriptive name for your variables, functions, and classes. For example, instead of naming a variable X, you could name it total sales. And this makes it obvious what exactly the variable is and what exactly it's holding. And another aspect of self-documenting code is structuring your code in a logical way. Group related functions, classes together, and use meaningful directory and file names. Also follow common coding conventions and best practices. This helps others to quickly understand your code without any extra explanation. Overall, the goal is to make your code base easy to understand, easy to maintain, even for those developers who never work on the project. And this single practice reduces the need for extra comments and documentation, making maintenance easier and faster. But at the same time, comments are also important at many different stages. And this leads to us to second common way to document your code, which is comments. Comments are a powerful way to document your code, but you have to use them wisely. A good comment explains the why behind the code, not just the what. And this helps other developers to understand the context and reasoning behind the code. For example, instead of saying calculate the total, you might write calculate the total sales for the month to determine the bonus. This provides more context and makes the code easier to understand. Make sure the real goal of writing comments to add clarity and value and not the clutter. And the next one is unit tests. Unit tests are important for ensuring your code works properly, but they just serve one more purpose: documentation. Each unit test shows how a particular function or method is expected to behave. This is incredibly useful for other developers who are trying to understand what exactly your code is doing. For example, a test for a calculate total function might show that it takes a list of numbers and returns their sum. This makes it clear how the function should be used and what kind of data it's expecting. So unit tests are not only prove the readability of your code, but also serve as a documentation for current and future developers. And now let's talk about the next point, inline documentation. Inline documentation refers to comments placed directly in the code to explain specific lines or sections. This is done using docstrings, especially in the languages like Python. Docstrings are special comments that describe the purpose of a function or class, its parameters, and the return values. For example, in Python, you might have seen something like this. For example, this docstring provides a clear explanation of what the function does, what input it expects, and what it returns. This makes it easier for other developers to understand and use the functions without having to read through the entire code. Inline documentation is not limited to functions. You can use it for classes, modules, and even individual lines of complex logic. It's also an excellent way to make your code more maintainable and more user-friendly. And the next one in my list is my favorite one: Git commit messages. Git commit messages are a really an important part of documenting your code changes. They provide context and reasoning behind each change, helping others to understand why a change was made. A good commit message is descriptive and clear. It provides to other developers what the change was made and why the change was made. For example, instead of writing fixed bug, you might write fixed bug causing incorrect total calculation in sales report. It provides a clear context to the project's history, not only to the existing developer, but also to the future developers. And the next one is README file. A README file is an important aspect of any project. It provides the overview of the project, how to set up, how to install, how to run, how to debug, and much more. A well-written README is the first thing a new developer or a user will look at. So it's important to make it clear and informative. And here are some key elements which can be part of README file: project title and description, installation instructions, user guide, features, contributing, contact information, and more. And in fact, GitHub does offer an option to add a README file when you create a new repository. A well-crafted file serves as the front door to your project, helping others quickly know its purpose and how to get started. Because README file is a part of repository, so it's always relevant to the project. And the next one is documentation tools. There are many documentation tools available in the market. But first, let me highlight what exactly these tools are. In simple words, documentation tools read your code looking for comments, annotation, and other information. This might include description of function, classes, parameters, and return values. Then they convert this organized information into more readable format like web pages, PDFs, or Markdown files. Some popular tools include JSDoc for JavaScript, Phoenix for Python, for C# and ASP.NET, DocFX, and Sandcastle. And the list goes on, but I hope you get the idea. So this documentation tool will make sense if coding is easy for you. If coding is hard, then these tools will not help you. To make coding easier, I have another video for you. Coding was hard until I learned these three things. I hope it helps. And thank you for watching.